In this tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate how to use Tableau to create a dashboard slash application like this one. The skill we're learning in Tableau mostly deals with parameters. Parameters allow the user to input a choice that's not in the data. This is a selection that the user puts in. And as a result of their input, it adjusts the output, the views, and the results of the visualization. Um, so unlike filters, where you select one of the values in the variable, uh, parameters allow the users to select like these kind of what if scenarios. So in this case, the storyline or the context is that a city is trying to pass either a ban or a install a new facial recognition system to monitor wherever activities happening around the city. And the AI technology will recognize the individual in the recording or the photo and try to help the police identify those culprits. So the depending on each of the city council persons' views, um, the criteria of how reliable this AI system, this facial recognition technology is, will determine whether it's allowed or it's banned. So, for example, if the technical reliability is very low, then more likely everyone's going to say ban this. If it's somewhat high, then it's mostly banned. If it's very high, then the allow portion might increase. And so, do we allow for all these criterias? And all these are mainly built using parameters. I'll explain what those are in Tableau, and we'll do a quick demonstration in this tutorial step by step. In this table, here are all the city council people in the district. So council person 1 to 3 all the way to 11, their political party and their leanings, meaning how extreme are they in their ideology, in their political affiliation. And then the result is ban or allow. And this is a visual depiction of their decision as shown by these. Okay, so we're going to start from scratch. And the data table that's powering this is very simple. It's just 11 rows of data. So this is the council members and 11 rows of data and their party. And these political leaning values means that 10 is more democratic, and lower numbers, let's say 1 to 5 is more Republican. So that's the input data. This is the only data table we need to use to produce this, because everything else is kind of calculated or parameters, and we'll set this up step by step. So let's go to Tableau and do this from scratch. We're going to connect to the data. It's a Google Sheet. I'll send you the link to the Google Sheet, or you'll be able to get access to that. And so I'm just connecting to the Google Sheet and clicking through the access controls in my browser. Yeah, and then you go to this kind of final page. You don't have to worry about going anywhere else. You just need to get back to Tableau. So I'm going to go back to Tableau. And in Tableau, because I made these connections, it has this list of my files. So I'm going to type in city council, which is the name of this Google Sheet, the title of the Google Sheet. And once I see it in this list, I'm going to open it and connect to that data set. So the data table, again, is super simple, 11 rows of data. Gonna start building sheet number 1. So we always begin with a table just to reflect back what's in the data. So this is the districts, the council member IDs, and then the party affiliation, which is here. And then the political leaning, I'm going to drag it here. And I know you'll visually depict this. So I'm going to change this instead of a continuous visual representation. I'm going to make it a discrete textual, just numbers here in this column. And so this last column is whether they will pass or allow this law to pass, allow facial recognition to be deployed, or say we should ban facial recognition. So those are the two options. So there's some logic here. We want to say maybe Democrats are more likely to allow to resist it, and Republicans want to allow it. So that's the setup. How do we calculate their decisions, their votes? And what criteria are we using? So we'll take very simple criteria. So we'll take two simple ones. The first one I'm gonna call this uh, is there a um, is there a community oversight? Will the community continuously review? There's a procedure for continuously monitoring how effective and whether to continue to use it. Is there community oversight? So the community oversight is a yes or no selection that the user will actually choose. The user will select yes or no. So in order to do that in Tableau, this new concept of a parameter, it's kind of like a variable, but the variable is the value of that variable is set as the user interacts with this data visualization. So I'm going to go to create parameter, and we're going to name this parameter community oversight parameter. Okay. So over here, this is where you set the options, the choices the user has as to what values this could be. The data type is going to be a yes or no. So will there be community oversight or will there be no community oversight for the system? So it's going to be a Boolean. A Boolean just means true, false, yes, no, 1, 0. So true, false. The default value, the current value will be set to true, and the choices are true or false. So that's all you have to do. You say, okay, now it's gonna look, it appear down here. So that's where the parameters go. It's works very similar to a filter. You can make this visible to the end user. So you can go to click on the arrow and say show parameter. And just like a filter, it has the choice. The users can select one of these two. Okay, it's not coming from the data set. It's not in the Google Sheet. It's actually something we just made using a parameter. And the parameter, you can edit it just to see. You can, you can edit this parameter. And just like we saw before, there's only two possible values. The way this looks, it's a drop down for most true, yes, no. I like to use a radio button. So this is the radio button. So it's the same thing, but it's just display differently, easier to click, less clicks, and more intuitive. Okay, so how do we hook in the logic so there's a new kind of pass or fail or allow or ban result based on this criteria? So my assumption in the model in this kind of decision-making process is that Democrats, if they see that the community oversight is set to false, Democrats will automatically say ban it, whereas Republicans will always allow it, whether it's true or false, that Republicans will now allow it. In order to make this this kind of logic, we have to create a calculated field. A calculated field, we have seen it before. It's just using a variable and doing like an if statement. If this variable is either less than or greater than or true or false, then this new created calculated field, this new variable will have some outcome, will have some value. So that new variable, the calculated field will say either allow or ban. Those are the two choices, depending on which party they're in and depending on if the community oversight parameter is set to true or false. So let's build that logic. There's a few ways you can start it. We can start it from scratch or you can start it from here. But let's start from scratch. You go to say, I want to create a calculated field. And the name of this calculated field is the vote, whether they'll vote to allow it or to ban it. And the first statement is, we know if it's Republican, they will always pass it. So Republicans will always pass it. That's one condition. The more complicated conditions, if it's a Democrat, you have to check if community oversight is true, then they'll pass it. If it's false, then this vote will be to ban it. Okay, so if it's a Democrat, if party equals Democrat, then you have to do another check. You have to check the second, um, second condition. So I'm going to go to the next line just to be clear. If The community oversight parameter, think of it as another variable, but the value of this variable set by the user, and it can change as the user interacts with the visualization. Okay, equals, if it's false, if there's no community oversight, false. There's no quotes because a Boolean or true false, the false is not a string, it's a setting, it's like the value. So there's no string, no quotation marks around the word false. Um, so if the first condition is a Democrat, and now if the second condition is false, then we're gonna put this into quote. The decision is to ban it, ban the facial recognition system. Okay, so that's one set of outputs. Um, but what if it's true? What if a community oversight is true? So that's an else condition. Else, you can put else if community oversight equals false, but we know this there's only one other condition, so just leave it as else. It's a shortcut. It's fine. Else, um, uh, allow. Okay. So the Democrats all have this set of logic. So that's the first if statement. There's basically a nested level if, the first outer if, and then the inner if. Now let's go to an else if. Now we're treating the condition or the case where the party is a Democrat. Okay, so I spelled it wrong. Yep. Else if a party equals Republican, then what's going to happen if it's a Republican? Then it's always allow. So you don't even need to consider any other condition, the secondary condition, then allow. Okay, great. And then you always have to use the keyword end at the end of at the end of if statements. I think here you might need an end as well. And so every time you open the if statement, you have to end it. Okay, so this looks valid if, then, and then additional if condition and an else if condition, and then end. So make sure you match the opening of the if to the closing and end. Okay, we're gonna say this is the vote. This is the decision of every single council member, and we're gonna move vote on top of this ABC and see what it comes up. Let's see, 1 second. Let's move vote maybe on top of text. Okay, so in this case, they're all allowing because there is community oversight. But if the user happens to be interacting with this on a dashboard or wherever in Tableau, once it's live somewhere, once you've published it, then the user says false. There's no community oversight in the city or in this in the bill that the way it's crafted. Then the Democrats will all say bad. So that's the logic. I mean, that's exactly what we expect, and we built that using first a parameter, letting the user set the value and change their mind if they want to reset the value. And then creating a calculated field called vote. And inside the calculated field, there's a few different kind of logical conditions, cases. And this is, covers all the different cases because the Republicans have to ask about community oversight. The Democrats have to ask about the community oversight, and that's a secondary condition. Republicans don't always allow it, whether there is community oversight or not community oversight. If it's set to false, they allow. If it's set to true, Republicans will still allow. Okay. So then the next kind of design or the next kind of view or the next worksheet in this dashboard is like a kind of iconic pictogram of each of these members as opposed to a data table. How do we create this kind of human figures? Okay, so let's open a new sheet and let's call this maybe just a table. And then the next one, let's call it the icons, the kind of visual depiction. So we know we want to represent each of the individuals in the view. So we need to have the council people, let's say maybe across. So these are the council people instead of like, the string D1, D2, whatever. We want to show the persons. So in Tableau, there's actually a way to do this, but it's super hidden. You'll never find it unless you see people doing it and you kind of get used to it. You learn over time. But here, the marks, this is saying it's automatically selecting to the T, the words. Change this to shapes. Okay, so we have shapes. Now you're getting circles, but circles is like a scatter plot. You don't necessarily want the circle. You want the human figures. And Tableau lets you change the shape. And in this case, our shape needs to be a human icon. So you open the shape, and there's no human icon here, but you have to go to more shape. And even here, you don't see the human figure. You have to change the default to say, I don't know why they use the word gender, but gender. And now you have human shapes. I'm going to pick the one that's holding like a set of notebooks or whatever. So that's the best I can do. You can also upload your own shapes. You can actually, there's a way to add your own icons into your Tableau desktop software. But that's a different tutorial. So apply, and you can Google how to add your own custom shapes. But for now, this is built into Tableau. Apply, okay. So now I have human figures. I can just increase. I can make it bigger, and now I have these human figures. So we're actually it wasn't hard, but you just have to know where to look in this marks area in the drop down. Now we need to color them according to, let's say, their party. So their party is their political leaning. Let's say it's a continuous value. It's going to be associated with a color, and we'll use the typical blue to red Democrat Republican Party. So first you drag it on top of color, and now you have these kind of different, intensities of blue by default. But I'm going to change this to a divergent. So I'm going to edit a divergent color scheme, and to do that, I'm going to drop down and say, look for the blue and red divergent, and apply it. Okay, and let's take a look. So there's a few Democrats, there's a few Republicans in the red, and according to the data table, if you have a 10, you're a Democrat, so D1 is very blue. And so that looks like it's matching up. Okay, very blue. So this is how you create the visual depiction. One other thing that's in the visualization is you have to kind of say how they voted. You have to put them into two buckets or two sides. And I like to draw a line to separate their decision. So we already did that actually. So the good news is we have calculated their votes. And if you put vote and drag it right to the left of this column area, you're going to see that. Yes, this is like a table. And inside the table, you have these icons. And on the left side is the allow, the Republicans are for it. And the ban side is the Democrats, they're against it. If you want to get the parameter up here into this, just like a filter, you have to show parameter. And I typically like to show this as a radio button. So see. So it's the same thing. It's exactly what the table is doing. It's just a different view, different kind of representation using these icons of human figures. Okay. And then to create the dashboard, you're gonna have to just drag first the icon up here and then drag the table down here. And that's pretty much it. That was the whole kind of way to get Tableau to create this kind of dashboard that has user input. I'm going to do one more parameter just to kind of reinforce and practice this these ideas. So and this I can color too. I can color the words by the political leaning as well. And then to do that, I just go to table, drag political leaning onto color, and there we are. And I can get this kind of legend or this legend and put it somewhere in the visualization. So you can reorganize dashboards. That's very easy. So we're gonna do a second parameter. The second parameter is gonna be the question of, is there this notion of if somehow you get accused of being the person in the photo and the AI system identifies that the image matches you, do you have a way to appeal the decision? Is there like a due process, a way to contest and appeal this decision that the AI has made so that you can be sure they identify the right person and you're not, let's say, going to jail or being penalized and criminalized unfairly because of this glitch in the AI. Okay, so we call this the notion of a due process. And let's go back. We're going to do the same thing, create a due process parameter. So let's go to create a parameter. So I'm right-clicking anywhere here, and let's say create parameter. And we're going to call this the due process parameter. due process. Okay, so you have some rights to contest it. Instead of a yes or no, I'm gonna make this like how much, what percent it's out of 100%. So, what level of due process is built into this legislation, so or statute. So you go to, it's gonna be a float. A float just means it's a number that has lots of decimal points. It's a value that has decimal points. And I'm going to say display this as a percentage, so percent with no decimal points, just the percentage. And here, in terms of the current value, I'm going to set it to point, let's say there is some due process built in, it's about 0.6 out of 100%, out of from 0 to 1. And in the allowable values, I'm going to choose the range, so the range. And here, these are the three settings. The range is from, let's say, minimum 6.6, and you can set it to lower, maybe 0.2. So the range of due process built into this law or this deployment, and the maximum is going to be just one, so 100, that 100% or one. And the steps is interesting. You control, like as the user drags through the settings, how many, what increments. So we're going to say the increments are like, let's say 0.1. So it's like 20% going up to by 10% all the way to 1. Okay, so that's the range of settings. The user has the option to choose. So you're just giving the user this ability to set a hypothetical what if scenario for the due process parameter. So that's okay. Let's say okay. And here we're going to show this just like we did before, show the parameter. And it's a slider. So that's nice. The users can, slide between these values. But nothing changes. It's not changing the decisions of the Republicans or the Democrats. So we have to make some assumptions or build in something in our model to add to this logic, just like we did true, false for community oversight. We have to build in some thresholds into our calculated field. So the calculated field we say is vote. So you're going to edit this vote, edit this calculated field. Going to add some more conditions because now not only is the community oversight parameter a condition, the due process parameter is a condition. So let's do this. I'm going to separate the Democrats from the Republicans and just make some assumptions for the sake of this exercise. Let's say the Democrats really want high levels of due process. They want at least 80% due process. So that's built into here, this, condition. So the first condition is community parameter is goes false and ban it. Else, I think before we allow it, we need to check if the due process is greater than, let's say 80%, 0.8, then allow. Okay, then allow. So if this is gonna ban it, and then this is gonna allow for it. So there's some mistakes because I can tell there's some calculated error conditions and so on. So it may be the case that I need to do an else if. It's just some keywords or some syntax that you have to get used to. Else if. I hope that fixes it. So the flow or the logic is if you're a Democrat, then check if the community oversight parameter equals false. If it's false, automatically ban it. Else if, I'm adding another if condition. If the due process is greater than 8, then allow. So finally allow it. And then here is another else if. Think of it as this is the if condition. This is entirely inside one if condition. Now here's a else if condition for the party equals Democrat is Republican. Then they're not going to automatically allow the Republicans. Let's say assume that we're assuming they also care about the kind of due process, civil liberties. Then the due process. Then let's say if the due process parameter, I'm pressing tab to autocomplete. So as soon as I start typing the word due process, I'm going to press tab, or I can click onto here. And then equals, let's say the threshold is, let's say 50%, and let's say greater than 0.5. 0.5. Then, I mean, if it's less than 0.5, then ban, then else allow. Okay. And I have to end this if statement because I started an if statement, so I have to end this if statement. There's still some errors, so I have to troubleshoot a little bit. Um, so I put equals and less than, so I should just leave it as equals, less than, I'm sorry. Yeah, less than. Okay. The logic is if you're a Republican city council person, if the due process is less than 50%, then ban it. Otherwise, if it's higher than 50%, allow it. So apply that. And I'm going to test it. Sometimes you get it wrong. Sometimes you have to make sure you test it to make sure it's right. So already it's at 40%, and some of the words are faint. So I'm going to need to, let's remove the color for now. Okay. And there's no value for the Democrats. So there's something wrong with the logic in Democrats. So we're going to have to troubleshoot the Democrats. So it's good to take a look at how the troubleshooting might work. I might be missing an, allow somewhere because when it's allowed, it's not showing up actually. So I might be missing a ban here. I think if its due process is greater than 0.8, then allow, maybe else ban. Okay, let's see if this condition will give us all the outputs. Okay, so now it's showing the ban. So the logic you have to kind of think it through, maybe do a few trial and error and test it out. So if it's less than 50%, everyone's going to ban it. Up to 40%, ban it. Once it reaches over 50%, the Republicans will allow it. And then let's take a look at the actual icons. It's updating as well. You have this majority of Democrats banning it, so the law is gonna not pass. It's not gonna be deployed. And you want to put this parameter in the dashboard as well. So you open this, go to parameters, just like you would do for other like filters and stuff. And then the users can set it. And I kind of arrange this a little bit underneath here. So in the final dashboard, it's just arranged differently, basically. So that's that's basically how I was able to set up all these conditions, parameters, and scenarios. And I'll stop here because that's basically the whole, you can produce more details and add to it. But just to review, first the table, just like any other table, but you have to calculate their votes. So you create first the conditions, the parameters, and again, the users have the power to choose a setting, choose a value, and the calculator field is going to take that into account wherever dynamically has been set at that point. You'll update the visualization to say ban or allow. And we keep adding more if statements and more conditions, depending on how we build in the logic, the scenarios for this complicated simulation. Okay, and so we have only two new things basically, or three new things. We have one parameter for community oversight, another parameter for due process, and the vote calculated field. And when you make the icons, you have to change the shapes, and you saw how we created icons for each of the council members. We use color to identify their political leaning to visually, add color to it, and then we set this kind of separation. And for some reason, the vote is not separating them. So I'm in this case, it's all banned. So the only thing I need to do is make it higher, and then the separation happens because there's two kind of sets of people. There's the people who voted allow, the people who voted ban, and that's why I have vote to the left of. I'm kind of segregating them or clustering them by the vote, and that's why they're in two different places in the table. And then finally, the dashboard, just drag things around, and you're pretty much done with that. So one last thing is in the visualization, I have like a big banner. I'll show you what we have here. one last thing is here. You have the results, this kind of big announcement that facial recognition ban has passed, or whatever decision the majority vote has. So how do you create this part of the visualization, this worksheet? So I'm gonna go back to Tableau, and you go to create a new worksheet. There's nothing in the worksheet. There's some kind of final result, and you have to create another calculated field. So in the calculated field that we need to make, we should count how many votes are for it and how many votes are against the bill. So I'm going to create a new calculated field. Let's go to create calculated field. And we can call this the outcome of this law, of this proposed facial recognition system. So we're going to say if the number of votes, so we're going to look at a count of the count of the count. So the count is a function we frequently use. And here we have a condition. We're going to say if the vote is to pass it or to ban it. So if we're going to put actually if statement inside this count, vote, and inside this vote, if vote equals, let's say ban, then it doesn't matter what you put here. You can still put this ban and this if statement. So it's going to count up how many votes would resulted in banning from each of the council members. And we have to say, if more than 4 people ban it, then this bill will not pass. So this proposal is not going to go through. So we're going to say if the number of people who vote to ban it is greater than 4, then output this message, this very big, announcement that facial recognition bill has failed to pass. And then there's else condition. Otherwise, else facial recognition bill has passed. Okay, and then you always end the if statements. It looks good. So now what do? We have this logic built into this new calculated field, the outcome field. And you say, drag the outcome field on the text, because anytime you want to show something on the screen, you put it into the text, especially if it's just textual data. And you need to kind of expand and give it more size to see the full picture. And you can change the font size because it's in text, so it's just like editing any text editor. So make this really prominent, okay, and then make it, bold, and then, that's one way to do it. That's one design that might work. And now that it's a sheet, you can also put it into your, maybe it's a little too big, so I'm gonna decrease it a little bit, put it into the dashboard. Okay, so we'll go back to the dashboard and drag this new sheet into here. You can put it high above here and give it some space and so on. And you can also do the fitting of into the dashboard that we know how to do. And so that's the final result. And I can change some of these parameters. It has failed to pass, but if it's high due process, it has passed. If there's no community oversight, it has failed to pass because the Democrats will block it. And there's community oversight, but it's low due process, it has failed to pass. So those are the conditions. If it's high due process and community oversight, then everyone's going to pass it. If it's somewhat low community oversight, then the Democrats will block it. So that's pretty much it. You could change the color of this depending on the situation. And so, that's a pretty easy thing to do as well. You can go to the text. So in Tableau, you can really do any textual kind of treatment in a worksheet just by dragging that variable into text and modifying the settings of that text. To change the color, depending on dynamically whether it passed or not, you will say the outcome and drag it onto the color. And you can set the two different conditions. So maybe green is passed and um, uh, the two conditions, green is passed and red is failed. You would need to create another variable. So I would say create a calculator field, and we call it the color of the text outcome text, and then you just do a if condition. If outcome equals, and you have to use the exact spelling. So we're going to have to go back to outcome and copy that exact spelling. Make sure facial recognition bill has failed to pass. Facial recognition has passed, even the capital and everything. So then okay, so let's remake that again. Go to create a calculator field, a color of outcome text. If outcome equals the bill has passed, then you can use any word you want. You can assign any value, but the color will change dynamically. Else, let's say red. And so that's how if statements work. Condition true, then this, else if it's false, then that. Apply. So it's not going to change the color per se. You just drag this into color, but you still have to select and edit the color choice. This is red right now, and then change the red color to literally red. So you click here and choose red and apply it. And if it's the other way, if the users it did not pass, you have to go to 1 second. You have to go to here, and you will need to edit this condition. This is red. So let's go to true, and it's over. Let's say now it has passed. You will need to go to the color. I don't want blue. I want green to be green. So the word doesn't matter, but it makes sure you select the color. And now I go back. I adjust dynamically true, false. So it's dynamic colors. So that helps a little bit to show you the results and have the audience, get a sense of what's happening. Somehow I lost the icons. The icons got kind of hidden because it was too small. Okay. And so, but this is just dashboard, changes to the dashboard. And you can improve upon this very easily. Okay, so I'll stop here. Feel free to contact me for questions. And this is a pretty advanced. Probably we'll do more of this in the advanced class as you incorporate parameters into your repertoire of with data visualization dashboard design. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.